This reminds me a lot about the current conversations about generative AI, where a lot of companies are just using a large language model and just maybe build a thin layer on top of it. And then there are others that are like working on algorithms, a lot of layers, different layers that they put on top and like also create a very unique perspective on what they do with the large language model beneath everything. And so they create their kind of defensibility. And it always sounds like the typical talk of the town when people say, hey, or investors say, what's your defensibility? You're like, yeah, in these early stages, I don't have defensibility. But listening to your story, it definitely makes way more sense thinking about it from day one.
Yeah, we were doing something in a whole different league than all these other companies, basically. Yeah, whole different league.
How long or how much longer did it take you to launch because of that?
I mean, well, it was, as I said, it was not just, by the way, the other thing that's worth emphasizing is not just about how long to launch. It's about the risk of whether you could actually even create this solution. What I like to say is that like when Snapchat came up with an idea, they just simply, there was no doubt about whether it could be built. They built an app and they added a disappearing feature app. And it's the same with Facebook. I mean, a network that initially started off in universities, but there was no doubt. No one said, I don't know if that's even feasible, right? It was feasible. They just had to build it. So that, when you have to build something, that takes time. Now, there's a secondary thing where it's like, let's take a biotech company that says we're going to cure cancer. Okay, well, we don't even know if it will cure cancer. Will they be able to come up with a drug that cures cancer? We don't know. So that's truly inventing something, and that's the risk we were taking. We did not have an algorithm initially that could identify songs in a noisy environment, and actually, everyone told us it was impossible. So we went to the top academic experts in audio signal processing in the world. So many of them were at Stanford and MIT Media Lab, and they just said this is not possible, and we don't know of any technology that can do it. We don't even know how it can be invented. So that was the risk we were taking, is we had to invent the technology. And then on top of that, we then had to build this vast database of music so that, fingerprints so they can all be identified. So that, yes, the answer to this, that did take a long time. We actually hired about 30 18-year-olds to put CDs into computers in 3 8-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. So literally 24 hours a day for 9 months. All they were doing is putting CDs into computers and running software that we had built from scratch to take the music off the CDs and then put it into this vast database that we created from scratch. Because remember, there was no iTunes, no Spotify, right? There was no digital databases. And then, by the way, they also had to type the name of every song, every album title, and every artist, because we needed the names to accompany the music fingerprints. So we had to. So that was a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of money to do all that. We had to build our own search engine from scratch, right? So we were literally searching all that music. So you put all that music into a huge database. It's like sitting there in the RAM of computers in the form of fingerprints. And now every time someone calls in, we're identifying the song. Well, how are we doing it? It's search. It's just like what Google had. So Google had built essentially a supercomputer, what's known as a Beowulf cluster, which is basically a bunch of PCs all wired together running custom software to turn all these PCs into a supercomputer. And we built the exact same thing, inspired by Google, which had started just 2 years before Shazam, 1998 instead of 2000. And we built the same thing. So we had to build from scratch a supercomputer Beowulf cluster. So basically, the efforts we were going to were orders of magnitude more than just simply getting a feed of what's playing on the radio from a company that monitors radio stations. It took us a year to launch from the point that we received venture capital. But prior to that, we had spent another year plus, inventing the algorithm just on angel capital and seed capital and so on. So I think in all, it might have been actually a total of 3 years from inception of starting the founding team to getting to actual launch of Shazam.